12 years of shared endeavors, a home in Wash Park, Denver, a financial planning practice that grew from a solitary desk to a team of 11 advisors, constant support for her father's medical expenses, funding her sister's wedding after the fiancé lost his job, and covering her graduate school tuition when her scholarship expired. She told me this over her phone as if reciting a shopping list. I remained composed, neither shouting nor crying, instead looking at her on the couch we had chosen together in that furniture store on South Broadway. Her thumb continued to scroll. A chill settled within me, not sorrow or anger, but something calculating and steady. I asked, "Enlighten me about him." And she did. For the following 40 minutes, Serena shared all details regarding Caleb Frost, a life coach and entrepreneur in wellness whom she met at a retreat in Sedona, Arizona 3 months ago. The meeting took place during her long weekend getaway intended for relaxation. Upon returning, she brought back an expanded crystal collection, and it appeared that her future plans no longer included me. She described Caleb as different, present, attentive, and not preoccupied with financial reports and investment schemes like many others in his field. Intriguingly, she asserted that he didn't care about money, and I smiled in response. This smile was not out of happiness or amusement. Rather, it reflected the sudden clarity of a specific image that had taken shape in my mind. If you have experienced giving everything to someone only to witness them misconstrue your dependability for insignificance, then you can fully appreciate the nature of this smile. The expression on his face is that of a man who recognizes the game has merely commenced in earnest, not ended. For novices here, click subscribe, for what follows isn't solely my narrative. It's a tutorial on the consequences when one constructs an entire life upon another's foundation and then tries to depart as if it were trivial. Comment below. Have you ever been the pillar while someone else searched for something more alluring? I'm keen to hear your experiences. If this tale resonates, share it. Someone needs to hear it today. Now let me transport you back to the start. To comprehend my subsequent actions following our conversation on the couch, you need to know how we arrived there. In autumn 2011, at a fundraiser in Lodo, downtown Denver, I encountered Serena Caldwell. At 34, I had been constructing my financial advisory firm for 3 years, working 60-hour weeks yet beginning to experience tangible progress. 29 years old, she was a marketing coordinator for a midtown events company and effortlessly commanded any room she entered. Her confidence, warmth, and infectious laughter made everyone feel included. We had been dating for 2 years before I proposed, and we exchanged vows in a small ceremony set against the backdrop of Breckenridge's mountains with 50 guests in attendance, just as she had envisioned. 4 months later, I purchased our house located in Washington Park, featuring 3 bedrooms, original hardwood floors, and conveniently close to the lake. The neighborhood was one she had been eyeing for years. This isn't meant to highlight my sacrifices, it's crucial for understanding what followed. When someone chooses to depart, they often alter the narrative. Everything you provided becomes either insignificant or a reflection of your shortcomings. The house isn't charming, it feels oppressive. Financial stability doesn't bring peace. It seems she reevaluated our history after leaving, viewing everything I did as either unimportant or indicative of my imperfections. Control, not affection, is what it was. Her commitment to reliability wasn't love, it was emotional detachment. 18 months prior to our couch conversation, Serena began subtly changing, behaviors I later understood with hindsight but dismissed at the time. She frequented a yoga studio on Colfax Avenue 3 mornings weekly. Fair enough. She developed an affinity for a novel set of acquaintances I'd never encountered, people she characterized as more akin to her. Energy was their commonality. She delved into books about genuine living and left them conspicuously on the bedside table, declarations in themselves. She ceased inquiring about my clients, my business, the topics that had been our shared discourse for years. Then came Sedona. Upon her return from that extended weekend, she sported sunburned shoulders and 3 fresh linen ensembles, while her eyes conveyed a transformation that she later verbalized, but in the moment, I hadn't grasped the extent of its reach. For 3 months following Sedona, she transformed, not by vanishing, but by becoming more noticeable in certain aspects. More talkative, more expressive. I realize now that this was guilt, the affection of an individual who is readying to depart, striving for self-forgiveness prior to executing a decision they've already made. Then on a Tuesday night in late October, she settled onto the sofa, grasped her phone, and stated, "Grant, I believe I'm in love with someone else." Upon questioning, I inquired about Caleb Frost calmly. I listened. I posed follow-up queries as I would during a client meeting when presented with data that necessitated careful consideration before responding. Where did he reside? Boulder. What was his profession? Mainly coaching and retreats online. For how long had this been ongoing? They hadn't engaged in any physical activity. They communicated daily, every day. I swiftly calculated the duration in my mind and maintained a motionless facade. She expressed her concern for causing me pain. She proclaimed that she would always love me. She suggested that perhaps we've each followed separate paths of growth. She expressed feeling like she was uncovering her true identity. I gave a nod in acknowledgement. I admitted needing some personal reflection time. Her expression seemed almost disheartened, as if anticipating a stronger response, and now uncertain how to navigate the quiet. I retreated to my home office, shut the door, and spent roughly 45 minutes contemplating. As a financial advisor, my entire career revolves around one skill, seeing all angles before acting. I don't react to market fluctuations. I avoid making impulsive decisions about others' futures. Instead, I examine the facts, assess potential risks, and take calculated steps. Throughout our marriage, I was the primary breadwinner, with my business accounting for most of our family income. Although the house was jointly mortgaged, I had consistently made all payments. For 3 years, Raymond Caldwell, my father, was fighting kidney disease. His dialysis treatments, specialist appointments, and hospitalizations were covered by our shared insurance, with our joint accounts filling gaps when insurance wasn't enough. Serena, financed under a credit line linked to our mutual financial structure, drove a car that relied on her personal credit cards, which I had co-signed. She wished to abandon me for a man in Boulder who paid little mind to money matters. Reaching for my phone, I contacted Daniel Reyes, my business attorney of 6 years, at his private number. Daniel was well aware of my finances, more so than most people know about their own. The message I sent read, "Let's discuss the separation of our joint financial obligations tomorrow morning. As early as possible, it's personal." He replied swiftly within 10 minutes, confirming his presence at the office at 7. Texted my financial manager, Philip Donahue, who manages accounts separate from my practice. "I need to examine the organization of all joint bank accounts, credit lines, and mutual responsibilities. This can be done tomorrow afternoon." Placing my phone face down on the desk, I returned to the living room and sat opposite Serena. "I believe we should consult a couples counselor before making any decisions," I said. She consented. Relief was evident on her face. The following morning, while she was at her yoga class, I found myself across from Daniel Reyes on 17th Street, just blocks away from the Denver Art Museum. He listened attentively as I shared everything without interruption. Upon completion, he leaned back in his chair and scrutinized me like seasoned lawyers assess honesty. "How serious is she?" he queried. "She communicates with him daily. She's expressed her love for him. In my view, that's quite serious. You aim to safeguard yourself. However, before she takes any action, I need to comprehend our complete vulnerability, as I want to be prepared when she does." Daniel retrieved a notepad, and for the subsequent 2 hours, we examined our assets. The house, joint ownership. For 8 years, my income covered all mortgage payments and property taxes. The credit accounts, there were 2 personal cards in her name, but co-signed by me and linked to our shared checking account. Her father's medical insurance. She was listed as a dependent under my business health plan, but Raymond Caldwell's additional coverage came from a joint account she had access to. Her car, financed via a line of credit we opened together for household expenses. "Here is what I want you to grasp," Daniel explained. "Unilaterally removing her from the property deed isn't possible while still married. This necessitates her consent or a court order during divorce proceedings. Disentangle your credit liabilities is possible. You can close shared credit lines, alter account structures, and ensure that any potential debts she accrues within the next 6 months will not be your responsibility. This is what I suggest starting today." Daniel compiled a list. On one side, items needing legal procedures, such as properties and asset division. On the other side, actions I can immediately take, like closing joint credit lines for her daily expenses, altering the household account to no longer automatically cover her father's medical bills, and meticulously documenting all financial support provided during our 12-year relationship. Lastly, Daniel raised a point about her father's medical bills. Are these ongoing? She has never spoken of managing them. They are automatically deducted from our account. I am unsure if she even knows the amounts. Daniel penned something on his notepad and marked it. He asserted that this would lead to a captivating dialogue. In the ensuing weeks, Serena and I attended 3 counseling sessions with Dr. Patricia Wang, a therapist located near Cherry Creek. I didn't attend because I thought it could salvage our marriage. I went because I wanted Serena to perceive my efforts, and because I desired an independent, professional account of our relationship's condition, distinct from any potential future claims by her or her lawyer. Simultaneously, I was meticulously amassing evidence for my financial records, employing the same diligence as I would in managing intricate investment portfolios. Every mortgage payment was systematically arranged by date, each tax return, every graduate school tuition payment receipt. The bills for Raymond Caldwell's hospital stays, insurance documents, credit card balances I paid off when Serena overspent, and 12 years of financial records were methodically compiled and organized. Simultaneously, I was attentive rather than forceful for the past 18 months, as I should have been. Over time, Serena became less guarded when speaking about Caleb. She shared things he expressed, his perspective on financial minimalism and intentional living. He viewed contemporary people as bondage to their mortgages and jobs. For him, true liberty was living unburdened by accrued responsibilities, light living. This brought thoughts of Raymond Caldwell and his dialysis chair at the Swedish Medical Center in East Hampton, thrice weekly. Thoughts of monthly bills arose as well. I contemplated what it meant to live lightly for a man with kidney disease, with his daughter's ex-husband no longer covering treatment costs. I didn't voice these thoughts to Serena. I simply listened. On one particular day, returning from a visit with Dr. Wang, Serena made a statement that summed everything up. She stated, "You've consistently viewed me as financially dependent." I parked our car in the Wash Park driveway and shut off the engine. Gazing at the house, I noticed the garden she cultivated along the walkway, the shared porch furniture, the upstairs bedroom window with her cozy reading nook, all memories we built together. "I've never perceived you as dependent," I replied. "Instead, I viewed you as my partner, but it seems our interpretations of that role might differ." She remained silent. She exited the vehicle and entered the house. I stayed in the driveway for a while longer before texting Philip Donahue, "Initiate the financial restructuring we previously talked about. Begin with the credit lines." On a Thursday or so, Serena discovered the credit line arrangement. She utilized a card linked to her personal expenses, including clothes, yoga studio membership, and dining out occasionally, but it had been declined when she tried. She contacted me during a client meeting, which I let go to voicemail. An hour later, I returned her call and heard a tone that was unfamiliar to me, not quite anger, closer to shock. "My card was declined, Grant. What's going on?" "I closed the joint line it was connected to," I replied. "I should have informed you earlier. I'm reorganizing our accounts due to our current situation. It seemed imprudent to leave everything open-ended." "Pause, you can't just do that." "I actually can. Those accounts are under my name. You were an authorized user. I didn't revoke your access without reason, Serena. By the way, you mentioned 3 weeks ago that you're in love with another man." Another pause. "What about Dad's bills? What about the recurring payments?" And there it was, the question I had been anticipating. "They originated from the same source," I mentioned. "The reorganization will impact that as well. I'll forward you the paperwork so you can comprehend the adjustments being made and when they're taking effect. I suggest you consult with Caleb regarding handling those matters in future." I said this without a trace of sarcasm in my tone, as I sincerely believed you should discuss the medical bills of an unfamiliar father-in-law with someone who doesn't prioritize money and learn about his perspective on intentional living. She ended the call. The subsequent 72 hours were the most tumultuous of the entire encounter. Serena phoned back that evening in a markedly different tone, quieter, more cautious, evidently having contemplated her strategy. She acknowledged I was wounded. She stated she didn't want this to escalate into conflict. She expressed that she believed we could manage things amicably. I concurred. I agreed that I wanted to handle things amicably as well. I had previously engaged Daniel Reyes as legal counsel to facilitate a fair division of assets, which I suggested she do as well. This pause in our conversation. "You've already hired a lawyer?" "Indeed, Serena, my lawyer, Daniel Reyes, has been with me for years. You've crossed paths with him at company events. Given your confession about loving someone else, it seemed prudent to discuss the implications for our financial situation with him, not as an adversarial step, but a responsible one." The next day, my mother called me. Linda Caldwell, a straightforward and affectionate woman from Fort Collins who had always considered me part of the family. We shared a genuine relationship. Linda and I, this call was unusual. "Grant, I need to comprehend the situation," she said, referring to Raymond's treatment. "We received a notice that automatic payments were halted." "That is accurate," I replied. I've initiated changes to our shared accounts due to my marital situation with Serena. I apologize for the inconvenience, Linda. I want to ensure Raymond is adequately provided for during this transition period. I'll take care of the upcoming billing cycle and sort out the future arrangements differently. After a lengthy silence, she inquired, Grant, how grave is this issue? I believe it would be prudent for you to consult your daughter about it. She agreed to do so. She expressed gratitude and requested regular updates from me, which I assured her I'd provide. The conversation Linda had with Serena after the call remains unknown, but there seemed to be a shift in their relationship. Later that day, Serena proposed we discuss matters face-to-face at a neutral location. I suggested the coffee shop on East Alameda near Washington Park, where we've been frequent visitors for years, and she agreed. At a corner table, our coffees between us, Serena appeared for the first time since our couch discussion as my genuine spouse. Not the one returning from yoga infused with another's essence. Not the one discussing Caleb Frost as if he was divine embodiment. Instead, it was just Serena looking weary and frightened. I didn't realize how much I neglected, she admitted. I understand, I responded. It wasn't fair. There was a pause. I stared out the window at South Downing Street, watching leaves falling, people walking pets and pushing strollers in their unique Denver style on a weekday afternoon. No, it wasn't, I confessed. However, I want to be truthful with you, Serena, as I believe we've moved beyond being considerate towards each other without authenticity. You confided that you are in love with another man. I can't vie against emotions. I don't desire a contest with feelings, yet I won't feign that the relationship we nurtured here vanishes due to your intrigue in Sedona. She gazed at her coffee cup. What's your plan? I intend to safeguard what I have cultivated, I replied honestly and lawfully. Daniel is working on a thorough account of our joint financial contributions during our marriage. When we proceed with the divorce, and I believe we both anticipate this, I aim for it to be truthful, not retaliatory, accurate. And your father's expenses. I've already informed Linda that I will handle this billing cycle. After that, we require a new arrangement. If we're not married, he is no longer my father-in-law, Serena. This caused her to recoil, not due to harshness in my words. It was because it struck a chord and she hadn't contemplated the reality fully. Will Caleb assist with that? I inquired, genuinely seeking an answer. Her expression revealed everything. A man who seemed unconcerned with financial matters apparently declined to pay his girlfriend's ailing father's dialysis expenses. In a session with Dr. Patricia Wang, she inquired, What does financial security mean to each of you in this relationship? Serena explained it as the absence of financial anxiety, enabling her to prioritize relationships, personal growth, and well-being. I defined it as accountability, creating a foundation that ensures those around you don't experience financial stress. Dr. Wang acknowledged our responses and jotted something down. This conversation stayed with me, because Serena's description of being financially worry-free was accurate. She hadn't worried about money for 12 consecutive years, neither about the mortgage nor her father's bills. Not concerning her credit card debt or insurance payments. Never. And from this lack of financial worry, she concluded that wealth was an unimportant factor in life. It was always present, just like the air we breathe. A privilege, not something to be carefully managed. It wasn't a flaw, more like a blind spot. However, it was a costly oversight for the one sustaining the system when the relationship ended, as she couldn't grasp why resources were no longer available. I feel compelled to address a question that has been posed by friends I've shared this story with over the past 2 years. Did you feel remorse? Were you seeking revenge? The truth is no, and allow me to clarify my response. Serena wasn't a malicious person. She was someone who gradually, then abruptly, realized that the life we shared was not what she desired anymore. This is a human experience. Individuals evolve, and their paths may diverge unexpectedly. I understand that. What I couldn't abide by, what I believe no one should tolerate, is a narrative where she exits our marriage with unhindered access to resources I accumulated, all while dismantling the very aspects she departed from. She chose to leave, fair enough. However, leaving was not synonymous with departing while I maintained every financial avenue accessible and continued subsidizing her life, as well as her father's and personal expenses, under the facade that nothing had shifted. The restructuring I implemented wasn't retribution, it was clarification. It represented the truthful financial landscape of a marriage's conclusion when one stops feigning contentment. In fact, this aspect astounded me. It was the most compassionate act I undertook throughout the entire process because the charade had ended. The deception had ended. Once the facade crumbled, Serena confronted the genuine predicament, requiring tangible figures and substantial decisions. Not choices leading to withdrawal, but authentic ones. The divorce process spanned 8 months, with Daniel's meticulousness evident. The accounting of my marital contributions, mortgage payments, tuition reimbursements, health coverage, business income that sustained our lifestyle were exhaustive and well-evidenced. Serena's legal representative, a professional named Karen Diaz, stationed close to the capital, was proficient but dealt with a less dominant hand. Colorado being an equitable distribution state implies not equal division, but fair consideration of each spouse's contributions. The records we accumulated provided us with a robust argument for demonstrating that my financial contributions to the marriage far surpassed Serena's, warranting appropriate handling of the house. We reached an agreement outside of court. Serena decided to retain the house in Washington Park, having resided there longer than any other place during her adult years. Consequently, she accepted a lower claim on my business assets and consented to a time-limited, tapering arrangement for Raymond's ongoing medical care, with primary responsibility shifting to Serena's own income and future support system. We signed the agreement one chilly March morning at Daniel's office on 17th Street. I shook Karen Diaz's hand. We nodded to each other. No hugging or tears were exchanged. We had already done our share of crying privately during the past 8 months. Now, let me share the details about Caleb Frost, as the story does not conclude with the divorce documents. Serena relocated from our home during the proceedings and resided in a rental within the Highlands neighborhood, north of downtown. At that point, Caleb remained in Boulder. As far as I could discern, they were still together, although she never spoke of him explicitly during the legal proceedings. Our attorneys managed the communication, and Serena and I communicated directly only a few times. Approximately 4 months after our divorce was finalized, Linda, Serena's mother, reached out to me. We occasionally stayed in touch. She made it clear that she regarded me as family regardless of her daughter's decision, and I valued her sentiments more than I knew how to express. Linda conveyed, "I thought you should know. Caleb is no longer present in the picture." It's essential to clarify that I didn't feel vindicated. Rather, I felt a sense closer to sadness, not for myself but for Serena, who exchanged 12 years of real life for something that lasted only 6 months of retreat weekend intensity. "How is she?" I inquired. Linda mentioned that things are being sorted out, with Raymond showing improvement. The revamped coverage system seems to be effective. After a brief pause, she inquired about your well-being and if you harbored any resentment towards her. In my Denver apartment in the Baker district on Bannock Street, I pondered over anger for a moment. I decided to inform her that I wasn't angry and hoped she would find what she was seeking. Both sentiments were sincere. I feel compelled to share what I believe is the core message of this narrative, since I've been trying to convey it clearly for some time. When Serena stated Caleb didn't care about money, that he was authentic, and not like me, she was making an assertion that many people make without fully grasping the implications of their words. The contention suggests that disregarding financial matters is considered less sincere, less authentic, or less romantic than acknowledging their existence. If you're young with no responsibilities, it's acceptable not to worry about money, as Caleb did. However, the situation becomes more intricate when you're a 37-year-old woman with a dialysis-dependent father, mortgage payments, and a spouse whose income has supported you financially for 12 years. Not caring about money when someone else is shouldering those costs is not commendable. It's a privilege. This indifference to money relies on someone, often unseen, performing the mundane tasks necessary to ensure bills are paid. Insurance covers needed expenses, medical costs are manageable, and lights remain on. For 12 years, I was that unsung hero. I don't say this to seek praise, it's a simple acknowledgement of reality. She likely portrayed our situation, possibly shared with Caleb during their daily discussions, as one where you were an impediment to her genuine life, a money-focused husband who failed to grasp true priorities. Perhaps in this version, leaving you for someone indifferent towards finances symbolized freedom for her. What she came to realize eventually is what I had always known, that liberty necessitates support systems, that escaping responsibilities requires bearing the burden of another's obligations. The man in Boulder, living lightly, showed no inclination to shoulder your father's medical bills. I share this not to criticize her, but because I believe it's crucial. The most perilous deception in a marriage isn't infidelity. It's the narrative you construct about who bears what burdens. When the narrative crumbles, when the credit limit shrinks and automatic payments halt, followed by a call from mom, one realizes swiftly what was factual and what was theoretical. 2 years post-divorce, I'm seated in my Bannock Street apartment, painting an unvarnished image of the current state. My profession is thriving. We relocated to a bigger office on 16th Street Mall last spring. We now have 11 advisors, a complete operations team, and our client base expanded by 30% in the past fiscal year. I continue to labor diligently. That's who I am. I've been on several dates, but nothing substantial yet. I'm unhurried. After a dozen years of constructing a life with someone, I find it genuinely beneficial to spend some time discerning my true desires for the upcoming phase, undisturbed by the din of a relationship that had deteriorated. Raymond Caldwell remains alive. The revised insurance plan is holding firm. Last year, I anonymously donated to a foundation for kidney disease in his memory. Whether Serena is aware or not, I am unsure. Occasionally, I ponder about her. Not with resentment, but with a certain nostalgia that comes from reflecting on something that was genuine, intricate, and destined not to endure. A dozen years is no trifle. The house in Washington Park holds significance. So does the garden lining the walkway. However, one cannot construct a life based on another's flawed perception of oneself. And when someone determines you are an impediment to their true self, it is kindest for both parties to step aside. She sought self-discovery. I wish she found it. In the process, I also discovered myself. It turns out that the man who managed the budgets, handled the finances, and posed pragmatic questions that others avoided was never the antagonist in this tale. He was merely the one ensuring the story could unfold. Ceasing to perform that task for an unappreciative individual, I instead channeled my efforts into constructing a project of my own. In my opinion, this represents a tale with a worthy conclusion.